open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
All right, welcome to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host today, Tom Fallbush, with my co-host Debbie Robbins and Bob Scott. And guys, it's a pretty interesting moment in Kentucky politics and national politics, because really the spotlight is on us. And of course, yesterday President Trump was in Kentucky, stumping for Ed Gowrain. And so really the question is right now, and Mr. Producer, if you can drop that audio for me, I appreciate it. Yeah. And so right now the question is, what do we do with Massey? What do we do with Massey? And I wanted to start off the show. We're going to spend a good part of the show discussing Massey and Gowrain. Yesterday, Jim Waters, our colleague, spent a lot of time on with his perspective. He's pretty pro Massey. I think, Bob, you're pretty pro Massey. I'm a Massey skeptic. I'm not weighing it out either way, but I do have some skeptical arguments I'm going to present today, and then Debbie, I think, is pretty skeptical as well. So, but let me just start it off this way. I think here's a good critique of Massey, and right now, we all know that right now the country's in sort of an existential moment, right? We're in this counter-revolution, we're in this war. We feel this sort of gay race communism, this woke stuff that's really sort of just taken over, and it was very threatening to our lives, and we just feel it at a visceral level. And so this isn't just politics as usual, right? And so we're really at a war. We're really in a counter-revolution, and really in a war, it takes an army to fight that battle, right? And so so my main critique with Massey is his failure to read the room. In moments like this, where the country's at a really existential moment, where you got to make a big change, you need to come together and coalesce as a team and fight. And I'm going to play this clip real quick. This reminded me of a quote that I heard from George S. Patton. So let me just play this real fast.
An army is a team. It lives, eats, sleeps, fights as a team. This individuality stuff is a bunch of crap. The bilious bastards who wrote that stuff about individuality for the Saturday Evening Post don't know anything more about real battle than they do about fornicating.
I'm going to stop there, because the rest of that speech is pretty spicy, and I'm just going to stop there. But, George S. Patton understood how to fight a war, and an army fights as a team. All this going off on your own and being a lone hero doesn't win a war, it doesn't win a battle. And so that's my main critique with Massey right now. It's like if you were someone that's a wise politician, then I think you could build coalitions. You could convince your colleagues that to vote with him, right? And but to be this lone wolf out there every time there's a critical vote to help advance the Trump agenda or the conservative agenda right now, to be this lone holdout, it says something other than I'm not a team player. I'll just say it. It looks like you're being kind of a grandstander, a showboater, or somebody that's trying to draw attention to themselves. Because if the rest of your colleagues who you're closest to in the House wouldn't support you, then there's something to be said about your position on that. And so that's my critique. And so I think it's a fair one. And so he's just not reading the room, and he's kind of standing out there on his own. And so we only have a minute left in this segment. I want to bring Bob in. Of course, he's going to have a counter to that. But I think every position on this is fair. And so, like I said, I'm lucky I don't have to vote in that district. I don't live in that district. I don't know what I would do really, because I do like Massey. And Bob, Bob's muted there, I think, but I do like, and I'll say this, sometimes a player just needs to sit on the bench for a while. He may be a great player. He may have all these great talents, but maybe he makes a few wrong plays. And maybe he needs to sit on the bench for a little bit, And so maybe that's what we need to do with Massey. Maybe we need to take him out of the house for one term and just say, listen, we like you. You have good talents, but you're kind of counterproductive right now. You're running the wrong plays. And so I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with Massey. Debbie was at the convention or the rally yesterday. We got clips, we've got interviews. It's going to be a great show. Stick with us. Massey or not Massey? We'll figure that out today.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We're talking Thomas Massey. A lot of you in this audience are going to have to make that decision. Is it Ed Galrain or Thomas Massey? And I want to get Bob and Debbie's opinion on this. And Debbie, you were at the rally yesterday in Northern Kentucky. Bob, I mean, you're sort of the Massey partisan on this program today. So respond to my little critique of him.
No, it's fair. It's fair. Everything you said, I can't honestly say that I can see your point in it, and how refreshing is that we can sit here and actually have a civil discussion, about someone that's representing us. And I do live in Massey's district, and unless there's some kind of major change or earthquake that happens, I will be voting for him. I voted for him every single time that he has run. And it's funny because I did a quick Google search on Massey, and all I put into it is just Massey conservative ratings. Well, this is what Google had to say that came up in that search. Is Representative Thomas Massey is widely considered one of the most conservative members of Congress, consistently ranking in the top 10% for ideological scores. In fact, there's another group that keeps track of that. There's several conservative organizations. He's won many awards for his conservatism, down through the years. And, his big thing is, and will always be, and that's cutting costs, bringing down the $1 trillion deficit that we're experiencing in this nation, and that's been his thing. He has not wavered on that one bit, ever since he's come. And I'll say this: I haven't agreed with him every time. Right. I feel like there's times that he should have coalesced and gone with the flow, so to speak, as you were talking earlier. But overall, I think he's doing a good job. I know I've had a couple times down through the years that I've needed my representative to represent me, and I've had to reach out to him or his representative to do some things for us, and they've been very cordial, very responsive.
In normal times, I think he would be a great politician, a great congressman. But these are not normal times.
Right. That's what I want to say.
I'm going to go to you next here, Debbie. But here's my response to Bob: is the problem I have with Massey is the fact that we're talking about Massey right now. we're spending so much time dealing with this man's future. And we're not doing that with any other congressman. And every other congressman in the U.S. House has coalesced around the Republican agenda, the Trump agenda, and we're moving the ball forward. Right now, we're wasting all of our energies talking about this one man. And I don't think that's good. We need to be talking about the enemy. We need to be talking about these idiots that are trying to destroy the country. Instead, we're talking about Massey.
And if it wasn't for the fact that we have such a slim majority in the House, then I wouldn't mind a Massey hanging around. And I also want to say that he should be doing his dead level best, as well as every other elected official, to help constituents. But as Tom said, and as I believe in my heart, these are special times. This is a very, very minuscule moment in time that we are going to be held accountable for if we don't really just pray deeply. And I'm not judging anyone on how you end up voting. If you absolutely feel convicted in your heart to keep this man in place, fine. But this is one minuscule part of time that we have the presidency, the House and the Senate, where things can be absolutely done so efficiently. Now, he's not the only one who's given problems. We have our own problems in the Senate right now as well. Yeah. It's just absolutely ridiculous to me, as a voter and as an American, to watch these people squabble and squeal, because really the bottom line is it's pride and power. And I was there yesterday, and I actually met Ed Galrain last summer. I was at a Lincoln Day dinner where I was singing, and he came up and shook hands. He was a very kind man. And then the next thing I knew, within a couple of months, he was running. And he shared yesterday in his speech that he was approached by the president, and that he had gotten sick of the Republican Party and left it. And maybe it was because Trump was elected. Well, we could say the same thing about J.D. Vance, but look at him. He's the vice president of the United States now. But we need a Congress that is going to support our president. We have so many things that must be done. We need executive orders codified into law. We need the SAVE Act done. Thomas Massey, he is, in my opinion, he's an obstructionist, and he's really put a really bad taste in our mouths. And I really loved the Patton speech, because I've been around a lot of military people. You have to work as a team. And I look at the Congress, and right now, that they should be the most powerful team on the planet. And they need to really. They're
not, Debbie. They're what's called they're the uniparty.
I know. I agree with that.
And they're all concerned. The deep state, whatever name, whatever tag you want to put on them, that's what we're dealing with in this country. Massey is one of the few that bucks against the uniparty. He bucks against the globalists. He bucks against the elite.
I appreciate that, but like Tom said, he's on an island all by himself. He's the only one. Now, if he had 25, 30, 50 that agree with him, go get them. But he doesn't. And the others, the quote uniparties, right now, they did a good job last year passing the big, beautiful bill. They really did. But not with Thomas Massey's help. They didn't. And that's sad to me. It's just ridiculous. I'm sorry. He needs to step aside for this time. And if he's really all that great, let him run again in 2 years. Let him go after Rand Paul's Senate seat in 2 years if he wants to. But he's just not fulfilling his obligation as an American, in my humble opinion, because of just being a resistance person, just merely for the fact of being resistant.
But do you want a yes person there, Debbie? That's the question I'm going to ask you back. That's going to rubber stamp everything and not ask questions. That's been the problem in our country.
You can ask questions, but let me ask you this question. What in the Trump agenda do you not agree with that we all want to get accomplished right now? And we only have this very, very tiny, tiny whisper of time to get it done. And we don't need Thomas Massey's. He's the only one. And unless we gain several more seats in the House, I'm sick and tired of talking about the guy. I want him replaced. We need that one vote sometimes. So what do you disagree with Trump?
I know his opponent. I've worked with his opponent at the Navy SEAL Foundation on a fundraiser. I'm not going to go into too many details right here, but I can tell you this much. I do know that every Navy SEAL that lives in this area is not backing Thomas Massey's opponent, Ed Galrain. And there's a reason for that. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I guess that's, yeah.
Well, we need to know the reason. I like to know reasons.
Well, I don't think Ed Galrain's the strongest candidate either. I mean, he couldn't win in his primary against a state Senate race here, and Aaron Reed beat him pretty handily, and so he isn't the strongest candidate out there. But like I said, I don't think this election is about Ed Galrain. It's about Thomas Massey. It's almost like the people that voted against Trump.
Well, I did have
they voted Biden or Kamala.
Yeah.
They weren't voting for Kamala. They were voting against Trump.
Right.
Same thing. This is really what's a resolution or a whatever. It's conversation about Massey.
Well, I met a gentleman yesterday and his wife. There's a clip, if we have time to show it later, that he was briefly the candidate running against Massey, but when President Trump endorsed Galrain, he dropped out immediately. His name is Dennis Jackson. He and his wife both are veterans from the Coast Guard, and then he's also a former police officer, and he's against Massey for other reasons. He said he needs to help the farmer. He feels like they both feel that his interests have been more for the people of Cincinnati opposed to the people of northern Kentucky. So they feel like he really has abandoned his constituency, the farmers particularly. And so he had a great quote. He really went on and on, but he may run again in a couple of years for another office. But or he may actually go after the
the really
seat.
odd thing, I'm gonna let this little secret out now too, but it's not really a secret for people that are in the know and talking to other people. And this is what I do find this very interesting. Ed Galrain is in the back pocket of Mitch McConnell. He's the one, and McConnell's people specifically were the ones. And I know on another state race that happened that Ed was defeated by, interestingly enough, another Navy SEAL, narrowly defeated. But it was McConnell's people who brought him to the table and got him. So we were seeing a really interesting dynamic where you're actually seeing the uniparty, I think, happening right now, where you have McConnell's people working to get Ed Galrain in, and now President Trump, who just wants Massey out of the way, period.
Well, we've got about 40 seconds left. I'm going to play this little clip of the rally yesterday. It was kind of fun. Trump actually brought out Jake Paul, a big
that was great.
That was a pretty cool moment. So, oops, I got the.
Happened under the Obama or Biden administrations.
The president wants to save college sports.
No one believes in the American industry like President Trump, the American worker. This is about a return to American strength.
Her tax refund was over $10,000.
With these slam dunk economic numbers, I'm very confident that we're going to get the American dream back. Well,
there we go. Good stuff. So we'll be right back. Debbie was there yesterday. We have some great interviews that she made, and so we're going to talk about Massey or Galrain. We're going to figure this out.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right. We'll play this clip from yesterday.
Fake news gets this. Tom Massey stands with the ladies of The View. Tom Massey stands with the ladies of The View. Mr. President, we stand with you. Fight, fight, fight! USA! USA!
I'm telling you, that is the greatest candidate.
I hope the fake news gets this.
Oops, there we go. So there we go. That's Ed Galrain yesterday in Northern Kentucky, stumping for himself. And Debbie, you were there. So
I was there.
Tell me about the event, the energy in the room. What was the conversation like there? Were there people like Bob and I that are still kind of, I'm still uncertain about this. I really don't know who I would vote for if I was in Bob's shoes. But were there people like that there?
Well, I think they're really, really questioning the situation. And everyone I spoke to, they're not 100% sure about Massey. And Ed Galrain had a huge following there yesterday. Lots of people with Ed Galrain T-shirts, Andy Barr Galrain, but also the Senate candidates were there. Daniel Cameron worked the room. He is precious, amazing. The president recognized all of the Senate candidates, but he didn't call them Senate candidates, and he also did not endorse. Okay. But I'd never seen Galrain speak before, so from a first-time experience, I thought he was outstanding. He did a phenomenal job. And, of course, I'm very partial to military people anyway. I think they're incredible. They already understand leadership. And I don't know him personally. I'm just saying as far as charisma, he's probably got Thomas beaten 100-0 on that.
You think so? I don't know if I
really
could go there
do.
with you on that
Thomas,
one. I don't know. But,
Thomas just doesn't have charisma to me.
Yeah.
But my deal is I just cannot stand the obstructionism in this moment of time, like Esther. We're born for such a time as this. Well, our president is there for such a time as this.
Bob,
we got to help him.
We've got some texts that have come in. If you want to... Yeah, we want to read in some of that. Mr. Producer, if you can drop your audio in the ears. Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure can. Go ahead.
Yeah. Some really great texts have come in. Thank you all for hitting our text line right now. That number is 502-571-0970. 502-571-0970. And this one text is kind of a long one, but I'll read it. Let's start today with three truths. Christ Jesus is king. I say amen to that.
Amen.
Governor Andy and Mitch McConnell are anti-Kentucky and should never receive a statue. I'll say amen to that too. I agree with that.
Me too.
Christianity, not Judeo-Christian, is the only hope for us all. And then it's the part I kind of like. Bob is right, Debbie's wrong. Not necessarily that Debbie's wrong, but they made that statement. And basically, they go on to say Trump needs to hear the people say no. No Israel first, no more spending. No, we want 20 times more deportation, not just this low number. That's the main battle. And then he goes on to say, Massey is not funded by AIPAC. That is the best reason to send him. They hate him because they can't buy him. And it's not just AIPAC. Mm-hmm. I had my eyes open here, really honestly, in the last several days. Qatar's another country that is pouring millions upon millions into our nation, specifically schools. And of course, we know Qatar is technically an ally of ours. But why would they be doing that? They are a heavy Muslim nation. They have their own obvious agenda, in doing that. Then this person went on to say, Debbie, shh. And I'll disagree with that because this is what makes America great, folks. We need to be having these discussions.
That's right.
We do. And may I interject? I want to say to the dear text person, thank you so much. But Thomas Massey has accepted hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars from people on the opposite side of the political spectrum.
That's right.
Shame on him. Yeah. Return it. If you really believe what you say,
That's
Return it.
Well, and likewise, Ed Galrain has had millions poured in.
Return it if it comes from the enemy.
Millions. I mean, I think as far as Kentucky donations that have came in for him is like around 3 to 5%. Most of his money has been coming in from. And I'm not going to go into. I don't know a whole lot about specific. I know several and where they're coming from. And let's just say that they're coming from outside of America. Into his campaign. So, and listen,
but are they pro-American? I mean, the Massey donations are coming from Americans that hate America. That's unconscionable.
Well,
return the money.
Concern, and I would agree with you on that. I would absolutely. But you could also make the argument of the people that are giving the money technically pro-American, or are they pro another nation that it's coming from? And I'll say this
and both sides. So you've got money coming from Qatar and people that claim money's coming from Israel through AIPAC. Yeah. So right. Who's right? Both sides
are taking
money.
It's a fact.
Yeah,
and
right.
Even though technically AIPAC, it's Americans that are actually doing or at least it's being funneled through Americans. It's wealthy Americans, but it is part of a Jewish lobby. And listen, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole and start accusing a specific country or a specific faith group as doing nefarious things. But we do know that there is groups out there. We can't just put our head in the sands and pretend like these situations don't exist, because they have existed for a long, long time. Long even before I was born.
Yeah, and then the question is the cause that they represent noble and just? And also are they being treated fairly compared to everybody else in the world that wants to influence the U.S. government? Like you said, how much money is coming in from Gulf states and all this oil money in the Arab world to America to influence politics versus Israel and AIPAC? I guarantee it's probably 10 to 1. And so, but no one talks about the Arab lobby like it's going to, but they have a lot of influence on things. Well, so much influence that it's really, they've changed the conversation on social media in the past few years against Israel dramatically. And a lot of it's coming from money from that part of the world doing that. And yes, listeners to this show that are skeptical of Israel understand that a lot of you have been influenced by money from the Qataris. So just stand back and look at this objectively, because we're all good Americans and we want to.
Well, and tying in with your comment, another one of our great listeners just texted, Israel, in their opinion, again, I'm going to say this, in their opinion, is a far greater danger than the left, and often plays both sides. Well,
that's it. We've got a disease on the right now. This anti-Semitism stuff.
That's right.
But I'm going to go to God's word. Yeah. We are to pray for Israel. He has favor upon them, God's chosen people. Again, we're only a wisp of a moment, but I'm not going to go against God's word when it comes to Israel. Do we need wisdom? Yes. Do I think our president has it? Yes. I think God put him where he is for a reason. And I'm not against Israel, and I'm sick to death of the rhetoric against Israel.
If the folks sitting in their cars or at home could hear our off-camera discussions that we have, I think we're all in agreement that President Donald John Trump was called for a time such as this. And I will not back away from that. I voted for him 3 times.
Me too.
I thank God every day that he is leading our nation. And we do need to be praying. We do need to be uniting. I'm getting more and more sick and tired of trying to make it a left issue or a right issue. No, this is an American issue.
Well,
and we need to be in agreement.
Yes. May I jump in? I will say Ed Galrain said yesterday in his speech that when the president called him to the White House, he said to him, and it just really touched my heart. He said, President Trump said, look, I don't know how many minutes, how many hours, how many weeks or months that this could end immediately. He said, I know I've got 3.5 years left in office, but what I will say is we need to get a lot accomplished. And he wanted him to come out of retirement and to serve. Whether or not it's Thomas Massey or him, the president is calling.
Ed Galrain,
he's begging
that's
us.
wonderful,
He's
but Ed
begging
Galrain
us.
has been trying
to
come
serve.
out of retirement and run for various positions for several years.
That's okay.
This isn't a new thing. Let me tell you. Let's don't be naive to that either.
All right, we're going to continue this conversation. We also have a special guest coming up. The Accuracy Media is back on with us here, hopefully in the next segment, to talk about Western Kentucky. DEI is not going away in Kentucky colleges. We'll be right back.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, we're going to put the Thomas Massie-Ed Gowring debate on hold for just a segment, and we're going to get back to it at the end of the show. But we do want to, we have a special guest on. He's back on with us, Adam Gillette with Accuracy Media, and they are doing amazing work in the state, uncovering how these universities in our state are just ignoring the law, ignoring the fact that, that we passed a law against teaching DEI at our universities and in our curriculum. They don't care. They're just, it's still embedded. They're ideologues. These are partisan people running the schools that want to teach this race communism stuff, and so we're going to play a clip of what they just found in Western Kentucky University. We've had a focus on UK over the past few months here, but now we're going to Western, and I'm sure we'll go to the other colleges as well. So here we are.
Yeah, it's in their curriculum standards that we teach about ADEI, anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
In the state of Kentucky, DEI is banned from higher education. So we sent an investigator to this university to find out if they were following the law.
How are you? Good, how are you? My name is Bailey. I'm an office associate. 5 prerequisite courses that are associated with our program, like Social Work 101, a psychology class, a sociology class, a DEI course, which can be from a lot of different choices.
Coming from California, I was really worried because at least out there, I know DEI works specifically anti-racism. And,
precisely.
Is still allowed out there, and I didn't know that coming to Kentucky it would be, but I mean, you guys have it in the program.
So that's what actually this program, the entire Department of Social Work, and probably that's what most programs that are offered out in California or at any higher education we're accredited by the CSWE, which is the Council on Social Work Education. Yes, if you go to, let's say you don't even want to go to WKU, if you go to a college that has a social work program that's accredited by the CSWE, yeah, it's in their curriculum standards that we teach about ADEI, anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have anything to do with what the government would like us to.
Kentucky's DEI ban has a loophole which allows DEI to continue in curriculum. This is so that universities can meet accreditation requirements. As a result, states like Florida, Georgia, Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Tennessee have launched a new accreditation body so that they can remove divisive DEI from education.
I'm going to stop it there and have Adam explain this further. So Adam, so they can still teach this stuff, it looks like. We first of all, we have a law that says DEI needs to be removed from higher education. And I would assume that means teaching it, because that's the whole point of higher education is the educating. And so, but it sounds like there's a loophole where they can still teach it. So what's the point of that law?
Great question. So Kentucky's DEI law is one of the weaker ones. It bans DEI offices, though as we found in other investigations at the University of Kentucky, they just renamed those offices and kept doing the same work. But it specifically allows for DEI to continue in curriculum. And their argument was twofold. They said, well, we should be able to discuss controversial topics. We should be able to discuss communism, Nazism, DEI, whether or not you like it, because these are topics to discuss. We would say that's reasonable. In the appropriate courses, you should discuss those topics. And they also said, we got to do it because the accreditors insist on it. They won't give us accreditation for social work, for criminology, or for education unless we push DEI. Well, my home state, the state of Florida, stood up to their accreditors. We passed a DEI ban which specifically said you can't promote DEI, which means if you want to talk about these principles in a philosophy class or a politics class, knock yourself out. But if you're pushing anti-racism in math class, we got a problem.
That's right.
Kentucky's law doesn't do that. And thus they hide behind that most commonly in criminology, sociology, and yes, sadly, education. And they use that as an opportunity to push as much ADEI, because you guys take it a step further in Kentucky, anti-racism DEI, they push it as much as they can.
Goodness. So Bob and Debbie, so we've got to talk to our legislators to really improve this law. We thought we had some barriers here to prevent this, but there's nothing's going to prevent them from continuing to teach this.
I know. I just saw Lindsay Tishner again yesterday at the event, and she's been one of the greatest forerunner on so much of this. And she, the poor girl, she literally has faced death threats, which is crazy a couple of years ago, especially with the transgender issue. But I know she's trying, but we do need to get behind that. I'm going to speak with her again. We should all text her, call her, email her, let her know how we feel about this. Because I have a son in the university. I do. And I just feel like I'm constantly, we poured and poured and poured into our child. Just like I know, Bob, you have with your children and Jim and, but I'm always having to deprogram things out of his brain and discuss.
So Adam, it seems like these undercover investigative journalism, events here are not necessarily there to uncover wrongdoing because they're not doing anything wrong. If the way the lady's describing what she's doing, this is in the curriculum, and then the law allows this. So this isn't. You're not uncovering, fraud or some sort of law breaking because it's legal.
Well, she did have that little comment about being able to ignore the government. Right, Adam? What did she say there? What was that?
Exactly. I forget her exact wording, but a frequent phrase essentially we hear from many administrators is, we don't do what the government wants us to do, which essentially means we don't do what the law requires us to do. And as she explained, essentially, they follow the accreditors more so than they want to follow the government. I got news for you. We don't elect accreditors in this country. We don't vote for accreditors in this country. There's other accreditation services you can use, or alternatively, as we did in Florida, we told the accreditors to pound sand. Are you really not going to accredit Florida's institutions because we don't promote DEI? And we won. They backed down. They weren't going to tell the University of Florida, the I think 7th ranked public school, 30th ranked university in America, that we won't accredit you because you're not promoting DEI. They didn't want to tell the third most populous state no more accreditations for you guys because they figured we would find a different programmatic accreditor. Kentucky should follow that lead and do the same thing.
Adam,
and it is wrongdoing. Yes, please.
How did you do that? Did you do that, your organization, or did Governor DeSantis in the State House? Okay. What happened?
Great legislators did that. It's very nuanced, but great legislators did that. And then separately, they changed institutional accreditors. So there's programmatic accreditors for social work or for education or for criminology. And then there's institutional accreditors. And the institutional accreditors weren't much better. So Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, and I believe Tennessee all created their new accreditation body for institutional accreditors to get away from some of this nonsense. And any right-thinking state in America should do the thing. Should do the same. And to your point, what she's doing is probably not illegal, but I would absolutely say it's wrong.
Bob?
Mm-hmm. Well, it absolutely goes against the spirit of the law. And Adam, again, kudos to you and your group. You guys are shedding light that needs to be shed. I have sent a lot of your videos on to several of my legislative friends here in Kentucky. And we've got to continue, keeping the pressure up. And I guess kind of piggybacking on what Debbie was just talking about and what you just said a second ago, there needs to be brave legislators, that are going to stand up. And let me tell you this, they're out there. I know them well, that are willing to pick this up and run with it. What's going to be the simplest way to get that message across to them that they're basically being played right now? The system, when I say the system, I'm talking about the educational system, big surprise in our state, which we know is far left, is taking advantage of their goodwill. And I'm talking about the goodwill of the legislature and trying to run circles around them. What's the easiest way? I'm asking you that we can coalesce, get this message across, and get the right kind of legislation passed.
Well, we set up our action alert at DEIinkentucky.com where you could send a message to the relevant trustees, because I would like to think that the trustees want reform at their own universities. Even if it's legal, why should anti-racism be a core component of social work? Why should DEI be a core component of your education degrees? That's outrageous. Well, these trustees themselves can rein in the radicals at their universities and do these things. Separately, of course, your legislature can enact a law like we have in Florida. And all I think of is, imagine if secret, unexpected, non-knowing educators and administrators in California were pushing MAGA principles into every facet of education. How long would that fly in California?
Exactly.
How long would the trustees at Berkeley allow that to fly and let people stay employed? How long would Gavin Newsom? Well, then why in Kentucky?
Right.
Why should Kentucky allow? And I wouldn't want people to push MAGA politics anywhere. You shouldn't be pushing politics in education, but they wouldn't tolerate that for a second. We should have the same level of non-tolerance for people who want to use education as an opportunity to push activism.
Right. Now, if the governor is the one who puts these boards together right now for the universities, then we're kind of uphill right now until we get a Republican governor. But we could go the legislative route, and we're running out of time this year, but we can certainly get it on the agenda and right in their heads and have them start crafting this immediately. And look at what Florida did, right? It's probably there. I wish I knew we can just go Google it and find it, what they did.
Well, Bob, and I think Matt Bevin tried to do a lot of this last year.
He did.
Right? Yeah. Or last time he was in. And so
last time he was, when he was in office. Mm-hmm. And we did have Ron DeSantis was just up and spoke to our legislature. And that was for a reason too. Let us not kid ourselves in a good way, but it's not uncommon at all. Adam can tell you this, that governments, especially like-minded governments from various states, will piggyback onto legislation or ideas that's coming forth in those states. And you just mentioned a bunch of states that, one of them is a border state. Tennessee, is one of them that they can, tie in with. And, let's do what we need to do to get this straightened out and get this problem forever gone, in our system. It should not be based upon the color of one's skin. It should be based upon merit and the way you carry out and are able to perform a specific function.
Well, Adam, what's next?
Well, and especially...
Go ahead. We have 30 seconds left, but go ahead. Yep.
Well, I still think it's exceptionally important to message those trustees, because angry emails reminding them from voters that if they don't do the right thing, the feds may pull their funding. That could force anybody to act.
Interesting.
Oh, DEIinkentucky.com?
That's right. DEIinkentucky.com.
So email the trustees and your legislator to try to get this changed.
Yes.
So good deal. Hey, Adam, thank you for being on the show today. We appreciate all your hard work for Kentucky.
Thank you for having me.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice, and we're going to go back to the top. Well, first, I want to thank Adam Gillette again with Accuracy in Media. They're doing God's work here in this state, and because really, at the end of the day, that one of the biggest problems we have in the country, it's the voting issue, the SAVE Act. We need to pass the SAVE Act. That's probably problem number one. I guess problem number two is immigration. Problem number three is education, because we are basically training our next generation, and we've been doing so for the last 50 years, to be a little communist. Let's just say a little Marxist, and so now we have the problem we have. We've got this country that's about to fall apart, and it's on its way to destruction because of education. All these bad ideas that colleges have been pushing work themselves out into the real world, and hence we've got to deal with all this garbage. So if we can get that fixed, that's going to solve a lot of problems. But we're going to go back to the Thomas Massey at Gowring. You were there yesterday, Debbie. You were interviewing some folks. I've got an interview teed up with a couple here. It's about 2 minutes long. I'm going to try to get through most of it. And let's.
Yeah, they were great. Dennis Jackson and his wife Dennis briefly was going to run against Thomas Massey until the president endorsed Ed Gowring. And here we go. Hey, we are in Hebron, Kentucky, and it's really windy here. But I have this wonderful couple. And sir, tell me your name again.
It's Dennis Jackson. Dennis Jackson.
Oh, Dennis Jackson. And Dennis was going to run for this congressional seat until President Trump endorsed Ed Galbraith. But would you mind telling us as a couple why Thomas Massey needs to step aside?
It's not for the farmer. Even though he's got a farm, just because you have a farm doesn't mean you're for the farmer. He wasn't pushing for a farm bill. He wasn't pushing for anything here in his own state of Kentucky to take care of farmers. Insurance companies are killing us when it comes to farms. Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about the lobbyists that are sitting around giving out money like it's candy.
Well, I tell you, another issue everybody's always wondering is why he always opposes the president. And he says, it's because he wants to save money in the budget. But when you're a lone ranger, don't you think after a while you become, more of a obstructionist? What do y'all think? Tell me.
Absolutely. His majority of his constituents, people that back him up, are actually from Cincinnati, not from Northern Kentucky.
Okay.
You do have that pocket that does support him, but you can't be in 13 years and not do anything, and you can't ride on the tails of Rand Paul when it comes to this penny bill that he says that he's the one that he put into place when it was actually Rand Paul. He hasn't done anything for the Kentucky people. He's been lining his pockets, and that's what it's been all about. Pandering to his people that are filling his pockets.
Wow.
Not doing a darn thing for the Kentucky people. Wow. And that's sad that the people can't see that. Yes, he's the only one standing up in Congress, but that should point a finger and show, why can't we get people here in Kentucky that actually are true Republicans, that stand up and fight for the people and care about what matters to us? He has none of that. And I don't care if you're at the congressional level or you're at the grassroots level. You should be supporting the people here in Kentucky and what our needs are. That's what every other state has. People fighting for their state. He should be fighting for our people, not the pockets of Cincinnati.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Great, good interview, Debbie. And so that was so Dennis. What was his name? Dennis.
Dennis Jackson.
Jackson. Okay, so he was going to run against Massey, and then Trump picked out Galbraith, and so
he dropped out immediately. But he's also a veteran. He and his wife both are veterans of the Coast Guard, and I think he also joined the Army later as a young man, and then he's also been a police officer. So, and apparently maybe now a farmer. I'm not sure, but great people. I met so many wonderful people, especially young people, college-age kids that have tremendous opinions and love this country.
Yeah, good stuff. So, Bob, what are your thoughts on his?
No, I thought it was a good interview too, and thank you for doing that, Debbie. He's obviously entitled to his statements. I will tell you, not the majority of people in Northern Kentucky, as will be found out come Election Day, are against Massey. That's not a true statement. We know T.J. Roberts, who's a state representative, and we had on our show last week, is very much a very strong Massey supporter as well. So it's just going to be interesting. I'm not going to get too bent out of shape from the standpoint of fight. I still think Massey's going to win, and I think he's going to win comfortably. But as a Christian, as a believer, I do believe, and I trust God that he's sovereign. I know God's sovereign, and he'll put in the person who he wants in office, and whoever that person is, that comes closest to sharing my values, that's who I'll vote for, with regard to that.
And these people also are very strong Christians, very involved in their church and church community. So I just think it behooves us again as believers and Christians, we've got to pray. Push,
That's right.
Pray until something happens. And whoever comes out on the end of this race, what will be. But nonetheless, I want God to reveal to us, show us if there's moral failure going on either one of these men's parts, and they're a danger to being or will not be able to fulfill that position respectfully, whichever one that is, I just hope, God's will be done. And I know it will be because we're praying. But it was interesting to hear them. And I sat and I spoke with a lot of people also in the audience there. And they're all questioning. They weren't like I don't think I met one hardcore Massey supporter yesterday, and that was in a room of 3,000 people.
That surprises me a little bit, because I thought that despite the known fact that Trump absolutely cannot stand Massey, and I think it's the opposite feelings too, or the same feelings for Massey about Trump. I still thought Massey may have some of his supporters there. So you're saying there wasn't any?
There weren't any. I didn't. There were none. I'm not being mean about it. There just was not one Massey supporter. And when the president spoke, everyone booed him. They booed Thomas Massey and lining the streets coming in. Hey, dear. There were all, there were no Massey signs. I think I saw one.
Yeah, and that concerns me only from the standpoint of a perceived, and I don't think it's more than perceived, a real fracturing that is happening among the MAGA folks and the folks that are, I don't want to say on the other side, that are still conservatives, but maybe more libertarian in nature. There doesn't need to be any fracturing. We need to be able to have adult conversations and discuss these things. And still, at the end of the day, I still support Trump. And I've said it time and time again. I said it on the show today. I love Trump, and I thank God that Trump is our president. But it's okay to have disagreements, with him. And I've had a few, and one of them happens to be Thomas Massey. And again, I'm not going to beat that dead horse, but these are things that at the end of the day, we can circle around and coalesce together for the common good of our nation.
We got to get rid of this loser.
This
guy is bad. He's disloyal to the Republican Party. He's disloyal to the people of Kentucky. And most importantly, he is disloyal to the United States of America. And he's got to be voted out of office as soon as possible. We got to get rid of this loser.
So, Bob. So I don't know. That's our fearless leader right there. He's got an opinion.
Well, he sure does.
And we all know our dear president is full of bravado and loves juicy words. And we know that many people now serving on his cabinet, of course, Marco Little Hands Rubio was one of the biggest people that Trump spoke out against when he was running against Trump. But now,
J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance is, yes. J.D. Vance spoke out against him too,
Well, but it's like the famous debate. Thomas Massey is not Marco Rubio, and he's also not a J.D. Vance. Yeah. He's an obstructionist. Yeah, and we are in a very critical time in our country.
And I got to say this, one of our listeners just texted in and said, that is the biggest truth said today. He said, we were just talking about, I support Trump, but Trump does not like anyone not agreeing with him. That's right. And I think we can all agree to that.
That's right. That's right.
If you're not agreeing with Donald Trump, then watch out.
How many times has he been wrong? That's my question. I love the T-shirts that say Trump is right about everything. So give me a list, people out there. Yeah. Where has he been wrong?
I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, like I said earlier, it's just a failure to read the room. I think there's a time and place for somebody like a Massey that's kind of a maverick and has an interesting take on a sort of an issue like libertarianism or fiscal responsibility. And yeah, that was great for 2005 maybe or 1996 or something. But 2026, we're in a real different mode right now. And we've got, it's all hands on deck. And this guy, like I said, we're wasting too much breath on him right now. We've got too many other issues. We're in the middle of a war, folks. We ought to be talking about Iran. We ought to be talking about, getting the SAVE Act passed, or getting, or who's going to replace McConnell. I mean, bigger issues than Thomas Massey. Yet we're just, like I said, he's sucking all the oxygen out of the room, and I don't like it. Let me play this clip of this interview that Debbie did yesterday with this young person, and I think it might shed some light on the young vote.
Okay, all right.
Hey there, I'm Debbie with Kentucky's Voice. And what's your name again, sir?
My name is Barry LeMaster. I'm from Ohio.
Awesome, you're from Ohio. Yeah. So, Barry, I love talking to young men in our country. Yeah. Tell me what's on your mind. What is the most pressing issue you're thinking about right now?
Corporate greed in America, to be honest with you. I see it taking over lots of industries, especially as a young person, like the housing industry. You see all these companies going in, buying up all this land. building expensive, rent homes and things like that. And I think it's taking away a lot of people's ability to purchase homes because there's going to be land that gets bought up, small homes that get bought up, torn down, and built industrialized. So I think corporate America, yeah.
Are you familiar with President Trump knowing about that issue, and he's doing what he can about it?
I am, yes. I'm very
And what do you want to
familiar.
say to him?
I want to say thank you, but I want to say I know you don't have a lot of support right now from both sides. I think just keep pushing for what you think is right. And I think he kind of has that instinct in him as a builder, starting out in construction. He understands the logistics behind it in the business, so.
Yeah, interesting take. I'm going to stop it there, but interesting take. That's one thing I like about the MAGA movement is it isn't sort of your traditional, conservatism of the 1980s and 90s. It's starting to recognize there are some pocketbook issues that impact the middle class, and so sort of the MAGA, the Republican Party is now the middle class party, and it just like almost like a 1950s Democratic Party in a lot of ways when it comes to economics. Tariffs. We're concerned about corporate greed, and so there's times where those issues need to be dealt with, and so it's a good moment for our party. But anyway, Thomas Massey, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Continue texting us. I'm sure we're going to talk about it more tomorrow. Bob, thanks for being on the show. Debbie, great work, and God bless America and God bless the state. So.